last, thoughts of cannibals were far behind them. The Nautilus and its passengers were in the Indian Ocean. They were 600 miles of West Australia. The weather was cold. The ship was sailing in very rough waters. Strong winds were blowing from the east. The ship was up to the surface of the water. Professor Aronnax went up to the platform. He saw Captain Nemo looking over the horizon. He was looking through his telescope. For a few quiet minutes, the captain stood still. Professor Aronnax took out his own telescope. He checked the horizon also. He thought he could make out a ship in the distance. When the captain saw the professor looking through his telescope, he grabbed it out of the professor's hands. After a few minutes, Captain Nemo broke his silence. I must ask you to leave the platform right now. I want all of you locked up in the cell for a while. Can you tell us why? Asked the professor. No, I cannot, answered the captain. 5 minutes later, Professor Aronnax, Conseil, and Ned were locked up in the same cell where they had spent their first night on board the Nautilus. This was going to be rough on them, as they were used to their freedom by now. Lunch was brought up, and the three men downed their food. Suddenly, they all grew tired. Ned went into a deep sleep in minutes. Professor Aronnax fought the feeling of sleep for as long as he could. He realized that they had been given some kind of drug to make them sleep. Professor Aronnax was angry at Captain Nemo. It was bad enough being locked up in a cell, but the captain wanted to keep a secret from them too. As much as he fought to stay awake, the professor could not keep his eyes open any longer. Just before he went to sleep, he felt a crash as if the Nautilus had hit something. The next morning, the men woke up and found themselves in their own cabins. Their doors were not locked, and they were free to move around the ship again. The men found Captain Nemo on the platform. He looked tired and unhappy. There was a look of sadness on his face. The captain finally broke his silence. Professor Aronnax, are you a medical doctor? Why, yes, answered the professor. I practiced as a doctor before starting my work at the Paris Museum. The captain asked the professor to look at one of his men. The professor looked at the man. His head had a bloody bandage on it. His head was cut badly. The professor realized that without the right drugs, this man would die. There was nothing the professor could do to help this man stay alive. The professor questioned the captain as to how the man had been hurt. The captain became angry. It's none of your business, sir, he answered in a loud voice. His eyes were filled with tears. It was strange to see the captain show so much tenderness. The next time Professor Aronnax saw the captain was the following morning. He invited the professor and Ned to go on another underwater trip with him. The men put on their diving suits and stepped out to the ocean floor. Captain Nemo went first, and 12 of his crewmen followed. Captain Nemo led the way to an area which Captain Nemo called the Coral Kingdom. Coral is the skeleton of tiny sea animals. They live together and slowly build upon one another. Then they form what is called coral reefs. Before them lay a forest of coral trees. There was coral as far as the professor's eyes could see. The beauty of them could not be described in words. In the middle of this spectacle of beauty was a clearing. It was made by the hands of man, not by nature. There was a large cross surrounded by piles of sand. Captain Nemo motioned to his crew. They began to dig a deep hole. When they were finished digging, the men brought a curious-looking bundle to the spot. It was then that the professor and Ned realized what was going on. They had come to bury their shipmate, the man who had been badly cut on the ocean floor. The professor couldn't help feeling that the man's death had something to do with yesterday's events. The last of the sand had been compiled on top of the dead body. Captain Nemo and his men got down on their knees to pray. The professor and Ned did the same thing. There was silence for a few long minutes. Soon after, they all went back to the Nautilus. Captain Nemo spoke softly. We have laid our crewman to rest in the Coral Kingdom. It was safe to bury him there. He will be out of the reach of sharks and man. May he rest in peace.